Hello everyone. If a student fails in an examination after not studying for that examination, it is totally fine because when that student will study properly, he or she will be able to clear the exams. However, if a student is failing in the examination in spite of studying so well and working so hard, that is a very big problem, and one of the major reasons for that particular problem in CA exams is the lack of presentation. In spite of knowing the answers, the student is not able to communicate the answer properly to the examiner, and hence he or she is losing the marks. So in this video, we are going to see how to present the answers in the answer sheet. This video can be watched by CA Foundation, CA Intermediate as well as CA Final students. All of you will find this video helpful. And I am guaranteeing you that after watching the entire video, you will 100% learn at least one thing that is new and you can apply it while writing your answers in the exam hall. Because I am going to share with you my real life experiences and also going to show you some examples using my own CA Final answer sheet. And if at all you found this video helpful, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe this channel and share this video with your friends also. So now let us jump straight forward into the first question, and that is, has the ICAI prescribed any particular presentation method for the answer sheets? The simple and straightforward answer is no. ICAI has not prescribed any particular method. Hence, if an answer is communicated effectively from the student to the examiner, then the examiner will give the marks for that particular answer. It can be any type of presentation. That is why I want to also give you a disclaimer, because in this video I am going to speak my own personal experience and I am going to give my opinion. My opinion might vary from any other teacher's opinion, so don't start complaining in the comment section that sir, what you have told is totally different from what my teacher has told. They might be correct from their point of view, I might be correct from my point of view. As a student, you are free to follow whatever you desire and whatever is relevant for you. Okay, now let's see the next question. Sir, where to put the question number? Answer is, question number can be placed anywhere where the examiner can find it properly. My personal suggestion is to put the question number in the top center of the page, and double underline the question number so that the examiner can find it easily. Let me show you an example. See, this is my answer sheet. So I present my question number in such a manner where in the top center I mention the question number. Okay. Next. Sir, can we start the answer in the middle of the page? Okay. So for example, your answer has ended halfway through a page. So in the remaining half, can you start a fresh question? The answer is yes, you are allowed to start a fresh question. However, me as well as most other teachers would not recommend so, because we would suggest that you should start every fresh question in a fresh page, because if a question starts from a fresh page, the examiner will easily be able to find out that that particular question has been started. He will not be confused and he will award marks wherever required properly. Hence, even if you have utilized only 3 to 4 lines in a particular page, okay, and there is most of the page still remaining, still my suggestion is that cancel this page. Okay, write PTO, which is one of our favorite observations right from school days. Please turn over, or page turnover, go to the next page and start the next sub question or question in the fresh page. For example, question number 5C, start it from the fresh page itself. That will be better. Next, I would suggest that whenever you are writing a theory answer, please leave a line in between each point or each paragraph so that the answer is also more clear and visible, and also it gives a psychological impact that the answer is more lengthy. Let me give you an example. See this particular answer sheet. I have attended question number 5B in my CA final indirect tax paper and I have written the point wise answer. For a 4-mark question, I have written only so much of content, okay, which is already looking small, but at least it is looking this big because I have left a line in between each point. Okay. Kanna, you might feel that we are wasting papers by leaving so many lines and consuming so many papers, but right now your first priority should be clearing your CA final exams first, become a professional, and then by using your professional power, try to bring a change and to improve the ecosystem. Okay, so for now, I would suggest leave a line in between each point and each paragraph so that it appears very clear. Next, underline the keywords if you are sure that those are the keywords for that particular answer, or if at all you are attempting a numerical question, whenever you find the final answer, let's say the final answer of that particular question was 14,000, so you can put a box around that particular answer so that the examiner will easily find out the answer, put a tick symbol and put the marks for that particular answer. You get my point? Next, this is also one of the very frequent questions asked by the students. Sir, can the sequence of the answers be changed? Can I write question number 2 first? Then can I write question number 3 and question number 1 later on? Answer is yes. The sequence can be changed in any order. Okay. But my personal suggestion is that though you change the question number, that is completely fine, but my suggestion is that don't change the sub question number. If at all you are attending question number 2, write question number 2 A, B, C, D, all of them together and in the correct order, because usually when the sub questions are not in order, the examiner might miss out on certain sub questions. Okay, or he might get confused and irritated while correcting the answer, and the least thing we want to do right now is to irritate our examiner, because our marks are dependent on our examiners only. That is why I would suggest write at least the sub questions in correct order. Let's say you do not know the question sub question number C. Okay, so I would suggest leave some space, leave 1 or 2 pages for attending question number C and then move on to question D. And later on, when you find time, you come back and fill those pages. If at all you still do not know question number C, you just cancel the page and write PTO, which is our favorite abbreviation. Okay. So my suggestion, you can change the question number, but do not change the sub question number. Next. Sir, does handwriting matter? Answer is a big no. Handwriting does not matter in a professional examination as long as your answer is legible and visible clearly to the examiner. It is perfect. Okay. Most of the rankers exam papers that I have seen that their handwriting is not good. Okay. You will also be able to observe the same, because they focus more on the content, not on their handwriting. If handwriting is naturally good, well and good. If it is not so good, you just make sure that your answers are clear and legible. Do not focus more on writing. Next. Sir, can we use different color pens for better presentation in our answer sheet? CA final students will not ask this question, I know that. Only foundation or inter students sometimes can get this query, and the answer is a big no. Do not use different color pens, because ICAI has mandated that you should only use a black pen while solving the answers in the exam hall. So use only black pen, no other pen. Fine. That too, I will suggest black ball pen. You can use a gel pen also. Sir, can we draw diagrams in our answer sheet? I already told you that you have to communicate your message properly to the examiner. If you feel that the communication will be more better with the help of a diagram, then why not? You can draw a diagram as well. But should we draw a diagram with a pencil or with a pen? The answer is draw the diagram with a pen compulsorily, because many examiners have a notion that whatever is drawn with the help of pencil or written with the help of pencil is a working note, or they are just rough calculations. Okay, and they do not form part of the answers. So whatever is there in pencil, they usually don't consider it and don't give marks for that particular thing. So if at all you're drawing diagrams or doing anything in the answer sheet, make sure you use only black pen. Okay, no pencil also. Next, very common question. Sir, is section number compulsory while writing the examination? Okay, From my personal experience, let me tell you, I have written intermediate also, final also, and I have cleared both of them. And in most cases, I have not written the section numbers in the examination. And do section number carry marks? Answer is, if the answer sheet is to be corrected in a tough manner, section number can carry marks. However, highest they will carry is half mark or 1 mark. So be very careful. If you are writing the correct section number, you can get half mark or 1 mark, okay, out of 4 marks. However, if you write the wrong section number, then the examiner will directly see that the section number itself is wrong, hence the provisions also will be wrong. He will strike out the entire answer and he will give 0. Okay. So if you are not lucky, then if you write a wrong section number, you can get 0 also in your answer sheet. So only if you are sure about a section number, then write. If you are not sure, then do not write. One more question I get is that, sir, I know the section but I do not know the subsection. So is it enough if I write the section number? Answer is yes. If you do not know the subsection but you know only the section, then just write the section number. And the next question which comes to mind is that, what if I do not know the section number, then what to write? So I will give you the example of Income Tax Act. If at all you are not knowing the section number of Income Tax Act, just put the wording as per the provisions of Income Tax Act 1961, and then you can quote the provision. If at all the provision is from the income tax rules, then you can write as per the provisions of the income tax rules, and then you can quote the provision. You get my point? Now some students might be confused whether it is a section or a rule. We do not even know that. In such case, what to do? In such case, you can write as per the provisions of the income tax law, and then write the provision. You get my point? Hence, if you do not know the section number, no problem. Don't get stressed out. You write the answer probably. Most probably you will get the full marks. Okay? Might be that you can lose half or 1 mark, but that is not a big problem when you see the overall scheme of things. Okay? One more thing. Whenever you are studying, I would recommend you to study along with section numbers. Even though you need not write the section numbers compulsorily in the answer sheet, but it is better to study along with section numbers, because sometimes ICAI gives the questions where only the section number is mentioned but nothing else is mentioned. For example, ICAI has asked a question, write provisions about section 32 of the Income Tax Act. Only if you know that the section 32 relates to depreciation, you will be able to write the provisions. If you do not know what is section 32, you will not be able to answer the questions in the examination. Hence, while studying, please go through the sections, but while writing the answers, if you are not sure about the sections, do not quote it. Okay? Next. Sir, what are assumptions and do assumptions carry marks? Answer. Whenever the question is not clear or question does not have the complete information to solve that particular question, then it is a student's responsibility to put an assumption in that particular question. Okay. For example, if the institute has asked you to calculate the taxes, the income tax for a particular individual, you can calculate the income tax only when you know that the individual is a senior citizen, super senior citizen, or not a senior citizen. Okay, in such case you can put an assumption that the individual is a normal citizen and hence compute the taxes. Here I would like to stress upon one more point, that the assumption that a student make should not be any assumption, it should be the best assumption. Sir, best assumption means what? Best assumption means the most common assumption that a student can make. For example, in the previous example itself that I told you, okay, that you have to find the income tax of a particular individual and you have to assume the age of that particular individual. You can assume that the individual is senior citizen, but is it the best assumption? Answer is no. It is most common that the individual is not a senior citizen. Hence, you assume that the individual is not a senior citizen and then find the answer. Why am I telling you this? Because as per ICAI, if you put an assumption correctly, you should be getting the marks. However, sometimes what happens is that in the suggested answer, only the most common assumption might be there and answer will be based on that particular assumption. When the examiner is correcting the answer, okay, and you have taken some other assumption, he might feel lazy to assume that particular thing and refine the answer, recompute the answer and correct based on the recomputed answer. I am not telling that the examiners are lazy, but still, to avoid irritating the examiner, I would recommend that always use the best assumption, because the best assumption only will match with the suggested answers and you will get marks easily. Okay. And one more thing, sir, do assumptions carry marks? Answer is, if the correction is tough, assumptions will carry marks. Let me show you my own answer sheet. Okay. See, I have given the answer for this particular question, question 3A. Here you see, as I have given an assumption that Kolkata is the principal place of business. Okay, and for this assumption, see, the examiner has given me 1 mark. So in this answer, assumption was carrying the marks. Okay, so assumptions do carry marks sometimes. Next, Kanna, what are working notes and do working notes carry marks? This is one of the most stupid questions that can be asked by a student, because 100% working notes carry marks. Okay, remember this. Okay, and always try to implement it, that if at all there is any new number or any new conclusion in the answer sheet, it must be accompanied by a working note, because working notes will carry marks for sure. And sometimes when the answer is when the answer correction is strict, what will happen, let me tell you. Let's say one step is carrying 1 mark. Okay, let's say half mark is for the working and half mark is for the final answer. How will institute give instruction? You know, if working and answer both are present, give 1 mark. If working is there but answer is not there, give half mark. Okay. If working is not there, one second. If working is not there but answer is there, give 0. In spite of the correct answer being there, sometimes the student gets 0 marks, and the reason for that is there was no proper working for that particular answer. That is why, in spite of the answer being there, the student got 0. Even if the working is a very silly working, but still put the working. For example, you are solving, let's say, a standard costing question. Okay, and you are asked to find the variances. Let's say you just had to put a calculation, 4000 minus 3000 is equal to 1000. Okay, you wrote this 1000 in your answer sheet directly and you did not write this 4000 minus 3000. Then there is a possibility that for this 1000 you do not get any marks, even though it is the right answer. Because if there is any new number on the answer sheet which is not there in the question paper, it should have an explanation or a working. Only then you should put any new number or new conclusion in the answer sheet. Very, very important. Please make note of this point and do not forget to put the working notes. Okay. Next question. Do the headings carry marks? So what is a heading? Heading means that if you are writing any answer or attending any practical question also, many a times it is relevant to put a heading on that particular answer so that it will properly communicate as to what you are trying to solve. For example, for a computation of total income question, you can put a heading, computation of total income of Mrs. XYZ for the assessment year 21-22. Okay, headings usually do not carry marks, but however it will properly communicate what you are trying to solve in the answer sheet and it will make your presentation better. Okay, so make sure that even the headings are proper. Next, do column headings carry marks? So for example, let's say you are drawing a computation of total income question. Okay, the outer column is particulars, second column is amount rupees, and third column is amount rupees. Let's say in the exam hall examination you did not put the heading for the columns and you directly solve the question inside the table. So will these affect your marks? Answer is, if you are very unlucky, the examiner might reduce the marks even for the column headings. Why so? Let's say you did not write amount in rupees. Okay, how will the examiner know that the amounts mentioned in the answer are in rupees or are in dollars? Okay, it is a very stupid assumption to make. Obviously, sir, if the question is in rupees, the answer will also be in rupees, no. But you have to communicate it to the examiner that even the answer is in rupees. Okay, it is a very silly point, but you know, sometimes people say that luck factor is also there in CA. Here is where bad luck spoils the game. Hence, if you do not want luck factor to spoil your game, make sure that your answers are perfect. If your answer is perfect, no one can reduce the marks from your answer. You get my point? Next. Okay, so since I take a theory come practical paper of income tax, I am going to share with you what are the different type of questions that can be asked in income tax or even any other law paper for that matter, like a company law or any other law. Okay, GST also such questions can be asked. So the four principal type of questions are pure theory questions, single provision practical questions, multi provision practical questions, and case study based question. First and foremost, what is a pure theory question? Pure theory question is a question wherein the answer will be completely in theory and the provisions or the points are to be quoted in the examination. How to present answer for a pure theory question? Write the answer either in point wise, okay, or para point wise. Point wise means what? I already showed you my answer sheet. See, this first answer sheet is point wise answer. This is the first point, second point, third point, etc. And para point means small paragraphs followed by one another. See, this is first para point, second para point, third para point, etc. You understand? So here also in theory questions, I would recommend you to leave a line gap between each point or each paragraph so that the answer can be displayed in a better way. Next. So what is a single provision practical question? Single provision practical question means a practical question, okay, but it is based on a single section or single provision or single rule. For example, the question paper asks you to compute the residential status of an individual. Residential status. Now you know that residential status is based on a single provision, that is section 6 of the income tax law. Now how to answer this single provision practical question? My opinion is that a student should first write the provision completely and after that the student should solve the answer. Okay, let me show you example. See, in this particular question, this is a single provision practical question. So first I have written the provisions according to the provisions of IGST Act 2017 when goods are delivered by the supplier, etc, etc. First I have written the question, then I have solved the answer. In the given case, the location is so and so, and then I solved the answer, computed the taxes and gave the conclusion. Sir, what is the benefit of writing the provision first and writing the answer at the last? The benefit is that many a times what will happen is that the student will be in a hurry or stressed out during the examination and might make a silly mistake while solving practical questions. In such case, what will happen is if the examiner reads the theory part first and if the theory is correct, what he will do is award the marks for the theory. Let's say this step carries 2 marks. Then he will come to the practical part. And if the practical part is wrong, he will give 0 only to the practical part. However, he will not cancel this theory part step. You get my point? So you will get 2 marks for this particular question. Now, let's say you wrote the practical part first. Okay, so you wrote the practical part first and it is wrong. What he will do is the examiner can put 0 in the practical part, and he will not even read the provision, because he might assume that since the provision is wrong, that is why only the practical part is wrong. So he will cancel the entire answer and put a 0 in spite of the section being correct. You get my point? That is why my recommendation is first write the provision, then solve the practical aspect, so that at least the provision marks you will get in the exam, even if the practical aspect is wrong. Okay, next, what is multi-provision practical question? Multi-provision practical question is a question where many types of provisions are mixed and given together. In such case, I would recommend the opposite. I would recommend first solve the question first and then write the provisions, and while solving the question, put an extra column for notes and give the reference of those particular notes, and write the provision as notes below the final answer. Let me show you an example. Okay, see, in this question, it is a multi-provision practical question. So here what I did is I calculated the taxable value first, that is the practical part was done first. Okay, then I gave notes as references, and in the notes I wrote the provision. See, renting of residential dwelling is exempt from GST via exemption notification. So I wrote the provisions later on. What is the advantage of doing this? The advantage of doing this is that sometimes the same provision is tested more than one time in a single question. See here, I have written note number 2 twice. So it means for both these answers, the examiner can refer note number 2. You get my point? If at all I was writing the provisions along with the answer itself, then I would be writing the note there two times. So instead of writing two times, I have written it a single times, and because of this referencing, I have saved time while writing the answer in the examination. You get my point? That is the advantage of writing the answer first and then writing the provisions. Okay, you will also get a clarity as to what and all you have to write. Next question, case study based question. Case study based question is nothing but a practical question, but in theory form. So there are no numbers involved. However, a situation is given to the student, and based on the law, he has to give a analysis and conclusion for that particular situation. Here, you can frame the question in such a manner. You can write the provision, then you can write the facts of the case, that in the given case so and so points are applicable. Then you can write the analysis, that how provision and the case are linked with each other, and you can provide your conclusion in the final step. Now for the CA final student, you get case laws as case study based questions. In such case, I will give you a very good trick. Sometimes quoting the case law can carry the marks. So to play safe, what you can do is you can quote the case law at the end of the answer by putting the heading of reference. Okay, so that, because what happens is if the name of the case law is wrong, then the entire question becomes wrong. So that is why put the name of the case law at the end of the answer, so that all these are corrected, marks are allotted, and then finally if this is wrong, the marks are reduced only for this particular aspect. Okay, this is applicable only for the final student. And one more silly question that student asks me is that, sir, I written the answer properly, but I did not quote the provision. Will I get the marks for the answer? Answer is no. Okay, if the correction is strict, even if the answer is correct, you will not get the marks. The provision is very important. As I already told you, working is more important than the answer itself. Okay. Now let's come to the last question of the video. Sir, does size of the answer matter? Simple answer is no. Size of the answer does not matter. You can look at my answer sheet itself. For a 4-mark question, I have written only half a page of content. Okay, in my first answer, you can see this answer, and I got 4 out of 4 in this particular question. This is just a 4-mark question, and just for this much answer, I got 4 marks. Okay, that is why the size of the answer does not matter. But remember that you have to learn to differentiate between the marks of the question. Okay, if the same question is asked for 2 marks or if the same question is asked for 6 marks, you should know how to present the answers for both of them differently. Okay, for example, let's say you have a computation of total income question where you got an adjustment of section 40A3, that is expenses of more than 10,000 to a person in a day, etc. Okay, let's say the expense was in cash. So if it is just a 2 mark adjustment or a 1 mark adjustment, you should just put the answer and quote that expense more than 10,000 in cash is disallowed. However, if the provision is asked separately for 6 marks, then you should know as to how you can present it properly. In such case, you should write the entire provision properly as per section 40A3 of the Income Tax Act 1961. If any payment is made to a person in a day exceeding rupees 10,000 in any mode other than account pay check, account pay bank draft, etc., etc., you should write the entire thing. Hence, based on the marks, learn to differentiate as to how you can write your answer. Okay, I think the video has become very lengthy, but I tried to cover as many points as possible in this particular video and as soon as possible. I think you would have found this video helpful. If you have any other points that you want to share with me as well as with the audience, please let me know in the comment section below. If the point is relevant, I will surely give it a heart. Thanks for watching this video. Okay, see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye bye.